Welcome into Big Time Football Talk. So I wanted to touch on the Jeff Okudah being traded to Atlanta. It is kind of ironic, honestly, that they're going to reunite him with A.J. Terrell, because if you remember in that 2020 NFL draft, A.J. Terrell was getting a lot, was getting dogged on a lot for getting cooked by Jamar Chase in the national title game. But it was one of those things where he was put in like an impossible position to try to cover. Clemson ran a lot of man-to-man back then. He was put in almost an impossible position to cover A.J. Terrell man-to-man in that game. So, Okudah, the media consensus number one cornerback recruit, a number one corner, on the board by Mel Kiper and most big analysts back then. So, and it just goes to show that. I guess what I'm going to hit at next is that, with Chris Sims and his rankings, he touched on this today at Pro Football Talk. This is why you can't always trust, media consensus rankings. This is why it is refreshing that Chris Sims does his own rankings and his own analysis, because you can't always trust the consensus rankings. I think consensus is a good thing to a point, because I think it shows that if a lot of people are thinking one way, that for the oftentimes it's usually right, but you have to take the consensus with a grain of salt, just because, you can't fall into the trap of, this guy's ranked number one by the consensus. So when I do my evaluations, I'm going to be, give him bump his grades up, just because I already knew, I went in with the preconceived notion that he was, likely going to be my number one. And I am guilty of that too. So I think that's my takeaway. I think it's a good trade for both sides. Look, I mean, Jeff Okudah, still a good football player. I think he still has some upside. This is a guy that was, obviously, like I said, a third overall pick in the draft, pretty good athlete. He's a very good tackler. If Atlanta wants to move him to safety, or if he, wants to make a move to safety, I think he could definitely do that later in his career. But, just wanted to touch on that with the Jeff Okudah trade. But thanks for tuning in to Big Time Football Talk. Make sure to stay tuned for more episodes and clips from the show. Till next time, peace.